Kirsten, thank you for talking to us.
That's okay.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am from Ballarat now. I originally came from Stawell. My family's from Stawell. So I'm living in Ballarat now after escaping a domestic violence relationship that I was in for 6 years. We were living in Geelong. So I came up to Ballarat because my sister's living in Ballarat, and that's basically where I've ended up. And you know, I met Kobe Bunny, who you've done an interview with before, I think, and sort of my life's just blown up from there, basically, with activism and all the fun stuff. So
my interview with Kobe was about domestic violence. You mentioned at the beginning of this interview that you were in a relationship that involved domestic violence. Are you prepared to tell us anything about it?
Yeah, no, I was with a guy with an intellectual disability for about 6 years, and he became abusive about probably a month after we got together, and it stayed that way pretty much right till the end. It was physical, emotional, financial and sexual abuse.
How long were you together?
6 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah. It's just because of the things that I've been through in my life. I have an attachment disorder.
Mm-hmm.
So as someone with an attachment disorder, when you form an attachment with someone, it's hard to release that attachment. So I ended up, I guess, sticking it out because, you know, he would be apologetic and saying, you know, I don't mean to do it, I do love you, you know, that sort of stuff. The usual stuff. But as somebody with an attachment disorder, you're always more willing to believe it when someone says I love you. So when they do say that, it's like, well, you know, I'll stick with it. And I did that for 6 years up until I got to the point where I was just like, I can't do this anymore, and I had to leave. So
how tough was it to leave?
Really tough. Yeah, really tough. That was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I mean, at the end of the day, it ended up being easy because once I was away, it was more of a, you know, learning to let go type thing. But when I was in the situation, thinking about leaving was probably the hardest thing I've ever been through because I didn't want to, because I loved him and I thought he loved me. So, you know, it was kind of a war within myself more than between the two of us.
Was there much support out there for you?
Yeah, there was. But unfortunately, like, because I'm a woman, there is more support for me. When some people aren't that lucky, you know, like there's if it was a same-sex domestic abuse situation, I might not be that as lucky. So, but yeah, no, there's plenty of support out there. But my sister was my biggest one.
So you had some family support.
Yeah, my sister and my dad were my biggest supports.
What about support services?
Well, I've had some assistance from Risk Family Violence in Ballarat since I moved there, and they've helped me get out of certain situations. So they've been really good. But yeah, it's more, I don't really think it's, you know, getting out of the financial struggles or the physical situation itself. I think it's getting out of your own head and getting rid of the emotional side of it, which is really hard to do. I don't think I have won that battle yet, but I'm getting there slowly.
What more do you think can be done to help survivors of domestic violence?
Well, I think that we need to realise that it's not a gender-based issue. It's not just women who go through domestic abuse. It's straight men, it's gay men, it's lesbian women as well. Like, it's not just straight women, and it's not exclusive to straight women at all. Because I'm not straight and I went through it, so, you know, but like it was a heterosexual relationship, but neither one of us was straight. So
what advice do you have for people who maybe are experiencing domestic violence?
As hard as it is, find a way to get yourself out. As hard as it is. And I know it's hard, I know it's a battle with yourself more than with them, but you need to find a way to get yourself out, because you won't recognise your life within 6 months of leaving, because I sure don't. I look at my life now and I go, well, yeah, why did this all happen? What is going on here? Like, you know, my life is crazy now, and it never would have been like that before.
You've talked about how you're getting your life back on track, and you've also mentioned you're involved with LGBTQI issues. How has that come about?
Well, I started a relationship fairly soon out of my domestic violence situation. Looking back on that now, I don't think I should have started it so soon because it didn't work out, unfortunately. But that particular person that I was in the relationship with introduced me to Kobe Bunny, and I heard about what Kobe was doing, and this is someone who had a suicide note on her desk at home waiting. She was going to go home from that particular event that I went to that night and kill myself. So, you know, like I was done. I was just like, I can't do this anymore. And I met Kobe through my girlfriend at the time, and it just all sort of blew up from there. I sort of went, well, this is the life that I'm in now. I'm going to help Kobe out with what he's doing. And
he's an activist, isn't he?
Yes, he is, yes.
And he's based in Ballarat.
Yeah, yeah.
But you mentioned your domestic violence relationship was a heterosexual one.
Yes.
Was there a coming out process after that, or did you know that you were attracted to people of the same sex? Or?
I've known that I was bisexual since I was 10.
Is that how you identify as bisexual?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's more complicated than that, really. But I tend to identify as bisexual because it's the one that makes the most sense. But to me, as a person, but I don't discriminate people on any basis, like whether they be male, female, transgender. I don't care really. So
were you already out as bisexual?
No, I hid my sexuality for 17 years.
What was that like?
That was tough. That was really tough. I don't think that I really knew what was going to happen to my life once I did come out, and how much of a difference that it would make to me as a person, because it's made a huge difference. My life's changed immensely, like it's done total 180 from what it used to be. So you know, I think it's probably a real struggle to do that, because you want to be true to yourself, but at the same time you want to do what you think is right and what other people tell you is right, and that's what I was trying to do. So it didn't really work because I was never truly happy with myself, but I'm getting to a point now where I feel like my life is pretty much resemblant of what I would hope it would be. So yeah.
Have you found much stigma amongst those in the LGBTQI community regarding bisexuality?
Oh yeah. You get the whole, you know, oh, you're just being greedy, or you can't make up your mind, or stop sitting on the fence, or, you know, that sort of thing. But, like, and they go, you know, what percentage are you like? Do you like men more than women, or do you like women more than men? And it's like, but there just isn't. It's just how it is. Like, it's as real as gay and lesbian. And the sooner that our own community recognises that, the sooner that the straight community will recognise that too. You know, like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's more about loving humans.
You're based in... Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, it's more about loving humans than you know, a specific gender, or basically, yeah.
You're based in Ballarat. A lot of the LGBTQI activism is in cities like Sydney or Melbourne. How important is it that we don't forget regional Australia?
Oh, regional Australia is really important. I mean, the vast majority of Australia is regional. Our cities only make up, what would it be? I think it's about 30% of our population. So there's still another 70% there that's sitting there and saying, hang on, we're all here too, you know, like, and it's so important, because Australia wouldn't be Australia without the regional areas. So, you know, it's really important that people know that our community is there as well. Like, you know, we need to be just as loud in the regional areas as we are in the cities.
What advice do you have for people in regional areas who are coming to terms with their sexuality and are unsure whether to come out or whether it's safe to come out? Particularly in regional Australia.
I think that they just need to know that there is people out there. They do have a community. Like, even I was surprised when I came out and I came to Ballarat. Like, I was sort of... I didn't realise that there was as big a community in Ballarat as what there is. But there really is, and it's there, and they're willing to help you, and they're willing to be around you, and willing to do things with you, and they're just as passionate about it as you are. So, you know, like, that there are people around that will help. I mean, especially if you have families that aren't necessarily helpful or supportive. Mine is, so I was lucky, but I know that there aren't always people that are lucky with that sort of thing. So they just have to know that they've got a community. They might not see it, but it's there and it's waiting for you.
What other issues are close to your heart?
I think possibly the biggest one for me is probably foster care. Disability is also a huge one, because I have cerebral palsy. It's spastic diplegia cerebral palsy. It's only a mild form, but it's enough of a disability to have an impact on my life and what my abilities and the things that I can do. But yeah, probably the biggest one for me is foster care, I think. Yeah.
Why foster care?
Well, I was taken from my mother and father by the state when I was only 6 months old, and was in foster care from then until the age of 18. So I never got to go back to my biological family. They tried a few times to put me back with my biological family, but it never really worked out. So I spent basically my entire childhood life in foster care, and I just think that it's something that a lot of people won't talk about. They won't talk about the more unfortunate children. They won't talk about kids that don't have anywhere to go. And you know, people always say, oh, you know, you're in a same-sex relationship, you can't have babies, but you can always adopt, or you know, and people go, oh, but I don't really want to do that, so I might use a donor instead. But what they don't realise is there's so many kids out there that don't have anywhere else to go. And
so fostering's crucial.
Yeah, yep. I mean, there are so many kids that don't have the family that so many people take for granted. And you know, a lot of those kids, all they're looking for is someone to love them and somewhere to be safe and secure and happy. And you know, I was lucky because I did have that, but there was sort of a little bit of an abuse situation living where I was living, because my foster mother was rather strict, too strict probably. I would get slapped across the face if I did the wrong thing and things like that. So, and not just in your normal average parent way. But you know, I don't hold that against her. I know what she was trying to achieve by doing that, and it's not necessarily the way to do it, but I'm not going to hold it against her because I understand where she was coming from.
Are you still in touch?
No, we don't speak. I actually had to go to VCAT to be able to get out of her custody.
Could you tell us what that is?
VCAT is the Victorian Civil Administrative Tribunal. They are like a court, but not like, they're not, they still make legal rulings, it's just more on a civil thing, not a criminal thing. So I had to go to them to be able to get my custody order rebuked because she wanted to extend it because I'd been diagnosed with Aspergers. So I had to go to VCAT to get that withdrawn. And when I did that, she saw that as me divorcing the family. So I haven't spoken to her properly, probably, since.
Was that pretty tough on you?
Yeah, that was 8 years ago now. It's been a pretty tough 8 years because they were my family. You know, I was their daughter, they were my parents, their kids were my brothers and sisters, still are, because I still talk to their 2 oldest children, and have contact with one of the younger ones. So yeah, you know, they're still my family. I'll always see them as my family, but we're just not in a place where we can communicate on a civil level. So it's just better to keep a distance.
You mentioned you're involved with disability issues.
Yeah.
How has it affected you? Is there enough support regarding services?
You know what? Not really. There's not really a lot. NDIS has been pretty good, I would think, but a lot of the stuff that they provide can be improved, I think. The government's got a long way to go before the NDIA and NDIS is a good program.
Could you tell us a bit about that?
Well, the NDIA is the National Disability Insurance Agency. What they do is they make a plan with you about what services you need, and then they provide funding so that you can access those services. It takes forever. The last time I asked for a plan review, I waited 5 months to hear anything. So that's pretty good, considering that the first time I waited nearly 12. And all I was asking for was a review. I wasn't asking to start a plan, I was asking for a review, and I waited 5 months. So, I was trying to provide for myself in that time, because when I moved from Geelong, I was no longer getting the free taxis, because it was set up with Geelong taxis, not Victoria-wide. So I was waiting to get my free taxis again once I had to leave Geelong. So there was a bit of a rough period there where we were trying to transition from Geelong to Ballarat, and I feel like the government can probably improve on that.
You mentioned your Aspergers. How has that affected you?
Well, my diagnosis of Aspergers actually led to me having to do my VCE over 2 years at high school, which I think was probably one of the most emotionally difficult experiences for me, because I had a very close-knit year level because we lost a classmate in year 11, and when that happened we all sort of banded together and were very close-knit, and everybody liked everybody and everybody communicated with everyone. So it was a really, really close year level, so that when they all had to leave and I was left on my own to go down to the year level below me, that was really difficult. And
was it hard to bond with your new classmates?
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, I had friends in that year level already, obviously, because you do have, friends in younger year levels and what have you, but, well, I did anyway. I just found it easier to communicate with younger and older a lot of the times, rather than same age people. But, I think it was actually really hard to do that, because they sort of were still... They hadn't been through what my year level had been through, so they were still pretty cliquey and had their little subsections and groups that they were all in, so you sort of had to try and find your place in all that, and that was really difficult. And then I got kicked out of my house, my foster parents' house, 2 weeks before my year 12 exams. So year 12 didn't go very well for me. I ended up with a 49.8 enter score, so it didn't go very well for me, unfortunately. But
So what did you do?
I ended up living with my biological dad for about 3 months, and then they found me a house through Vermillion and Care. They're sort of like, they do counselling and housing and things like that. So they sort of found me a place through them, and from there my boss at my job found me a flat, and I moved into that. And then after that I met John, who was the abusive ex-boyfriend. So my life's kind of come full circle.
Now you're in Ballarat, of course.
Yeah.
What are you doing in Ballarat?
I'm working at the Pride Hub that Kobe and I have started now. I've worked there 5 days a week with Kobe, and also doing the church services every second Sunday now too. So life's been pretty flat out and crazy. I don't think Kobe and I were expecting the demand that we got.
Can you tell us a bit about the Pride Hub?
Well, we just, in Ballarat, we just saw a gap in services for people 25 and over who are LGBTIQ. And we sort of went, well, what are we going to do about this? And that's where the Pride Hub was born. We were doing most of the work from home. And then we spoke to Brett Edgington at Trades Hall in Ballarat. He's the secretary there, he runs the Trades Hall, and he said, I've got an office space here that you guys can use, and we sort of thought we could use that to separate work and home a little bit, to give us a bit of time and space, which mostly has worked, but sometimes doesn't, because it still sometimes comes home with us, unfortunately. But that's just the demand that we're experiencing at the moment. Oh, it's crazy.
What kind of services do you offer?
Well, we have been known to help with suicide prevention and assistance to people who are wanting to commit suicide, and also homelessness, drug and alcohol abuse. What else have we got? There's just access to services in general.
Because homelessness and of course suicide affects the LGBTI community.
Yeah, for sure. I myself have tried to kill myself 4 times in my life. December being the most recent time. I didn't actually get to try in December, but I was going to.
What stopped you?
Kobe.
So Kobe's really saved you.
He has in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't think that I would be here if I hadn't met Kobe, and I do owe him a lot for that. I mean, but I've been spending the last 5 months basically trying to repay that. I know I can probably never repay that, but I have. I've been spending the last 5 months trying to repay the debt that I now feel that I owe him, because he's kept me with my family and kept me with people that I love. And
it sounds like the way you're repaying him is to help others.
Yeah. We've had instances where we've had to talk people off train tracks since then, so that was pretty difficult for me, but I managed it. And the person that I spoke to when he was walking along the train tracks is now doing really well. So I guess that's reward in itself, because I feel like I've paid it forward. But you know, there is a lot that I do owe Kobe and could never repay him for, as much as I try. But I just, you know, I feel like maybe if I hadn't have met Kobe, things would be very different. Like,
well,
yeah.
Absolutely, from what you say. What are your hopes for the future?
My hopes for the future are probably that Kobe and I can get the Pride Hub to where we see it going. With being the go-to service in Ballarat for everybody who needs us. We don't discriminate on basis of sexuality or whatever, because we know what that feels like to have people discriminate against you. So we don't really discriminate. We have plenty of allies and straight people who are either seeking assistance or helping us out with the Pride Hub. So I think hopefully we can manage to get it funded and part of the regional Victorian psyche a little bit when people want to access these services and may not necessarily feel comfortable going to a professional like a psychologist or something like that. So they'll come to us instead, and you know, can have a peer-to-peer chat. And,
what sort of funding? Are we talking government funding?
Well, yeah, I'm hoping so. I'm hoping that will be our end result. You know, I just want it to be something that's really firmly in Ballarat's, you know, midst, and everyone knows that we're there and is willing to help us out, you know. Like,
has there been broad support for it? Oh
yeah, we've had donations coming from left, right and centre. Like, we actually got donations of so much furniture that it wouldn't all fit in our office. So we've done, it's actually done really well. We've been really proud of what we've done so far, and we're only hoping that we can go further and do more. So. And
finally, you've talked about your hopes for the future of the Pride Hub. What about the future for you?
The future for me, well, I'm kind of hoping that I can eventually start my own family. I would really like to have my own family. I feel like that would help me come to terms a lot with a lot of my issues and a lot of the things that I've been through, having gone through foster care and stuff myself. And I would like to become a foster carer as well, just to pay it forward a little bit more than what I already have, I suppose. Because I feel like coming from that perspective, I can offer something to kids who have nowhere else to go that maybe not many people would necessarily be able to offer. I'm hoping that I can do that, and looking at getting my Bachelor in Community and Human Services, so that I've got the qualifications that I need to help the people that I'm trying to help, and can debrief myself at the end of the day and not take it all home with me like I usually do, because I usually take on everybody else's problems as well as my own, and it gets tiring. So I'm hoping I can learn to manage that within myself as well.
Kirsten, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, William. I appreciate it.